Okay. Good day, student. I am P.I.C, and now I will be discuss to you the Manobo and Bagobo, which is part of the Lumad group of Mindanao. So this is under by the Philippine Indigenous Community. So okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so the learning objectives and the outcome goals of this discussion is redefine Manobo and Bagobo. And I will be discuss brief and wrap up um, the, um, the typical idea or some information that you have need. So second, location. We're in specific map. So three, geography, wherein they live or places or ambience of their living. For the worldview or that for say instance their belief. Okay. Five, material culture. It is a part of their life as an IP group and how they use it until now and how it affects. Yun, ganon. So six, social organization. Seven, historical events and important events of the indigenous people group. Eight, issues confronting the indigenous people group, which is refers to the issues and problem of indigenous people group. So lastly, sources and references. So larger IP group, collective, when I say collective is um, in philosophical views, it is a part of ideology of group or sharing some knowledge about um, sharing some knowledge of individual to the group. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So when we say Bagobo, it recognized by the Lumad. It composed of subgroup of Tagabawa, Klata, or Kingan, Obo. Okay, so when it comes to Manobo, one ata subgroup or composed of Batang, Talingud, and Taganum. So two Bagobo subgroup, Ataw, Changan, Klata, Obo, Kingan. The same with the Bagobo. And same with the that I discussed to recently. So Gringan, Eto Ata, Kailawan, Kalangilan, Manobo, Obo, Matig Salug, Tagaloro, and Tegdapaya. So three ganon subgroup composed by Agusan, Lanao, and Misani. So North Cotabato, Elianen, Libunganen, and Pulinyan. So five, South Cotabato, Tasaday, and late Sarangani, Tagabawa. So six, Western Bukidnon, Tereyetica, Ilentungan, and Pulangian. So seven, Agusan del Sur, eight, Banwaon, nine, Bukidnon. This is part of the subgroup of Manobo. So this information is according to the NCCA for National Commission for Culture of Arts. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah. So Bagobo, okay. Okay. See, who is Bagobo or who are the indigenous Bagobo? So according to NCCA, one of the largest groups among the indigenous people of Southern Mindanao. So when you say Southern Mindanao, it in so the presence of this group of people was rooted from history and has the distinctive. So dati pa lamang nag-exist na sila. Meron silang tawag dito, pinanggaga pinanggagalingan. So, ayun. Okay, Manobo. So, Manobo, okay, according to Opena, or 1985, Manobo is a generic term which refers to people who are still in the subsistence level economy and are generally in the mountains who practice the slash and burn agriculture. So further, she qualified that the term Manobo is very derogatory, or some instance na low opinion. So for it connotes to be backward, uncivilized, ignorant, boisterous, unwashed, and kept rough and lawless. So hence, she opined that the use of term must be used with discreetness, tact, and prudence. So the term can also mean a slave or magdul or a person destined to all in the house and farm, so on. So, okay, next slide. Location. So, okay, this is the official or the visual form of map of Bagobo. So, as you can see in the visual, so that the red one is part of Bagobo. Okay, um, it is a prominently known in that area. Okay, Manobo. So as you can see at the visual, it comprises of one, two, three, four, five, and six red mark on the map. So I think it is a prominently in is a vast population in there. So okay, next who. So on this visual that you can see on the PowerPoint was an performance of festival, cultural festival, that they portrayed about Bagobo. Okay, I sorry, Manobo rather. So geography. Um, Next slide. Okay, so Bagobo is scattered throughout the southern Philippine archipelago, slowly disappearing. Tribes untouched by neither time nor colonization still exists in present time. So along the desolate eastern coast of the Davao Gulf, centuries ago, new migrants mixed with the native population, forming a new community that was given the name Bagobo. So this tribe traces its origin from people who brought Hinduism to Mindanao. Its name was derived from the words bago, meaning new, and obo, meaning growth. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So let's say most Manobo inhabit the river valleys, hillside, plateaus, interiors of Agusan, Bukidnon, Cotabato, Davao, Misamis Oriental, and Surigao del Sur. That is the part of Mindanao. So the whole Manobo population numbers 250,000. Um, about okay, accordingly to the NCCP and P.I.C 1988. So the subgroup Manobo inhabits a contiguous area along southern Bukidnon, northeastern Cotabato, and northwestern Davao. So dahil yanon, Libunganan, Arumanan, and Kirintakan, are in northern Cotabato. Um, the Tigwahanon are concentrated in Lindagay and scattered all over the town of San Fernando Bukidnon. So it is close to the border of Davao del Norte. Tigwa may have derived from Gua, or, in other words, scattered, or the Tigwa River, whose banks they inhabit. Okay? The Umayano is scattered around the town of Cabalangsan or Bukidnon. So the interiors of Agusan del Sur, the western Bukidnon, Manobo, and the western quarter of Bukidnon province, etc. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, the worldview. So it refers to the facts or belief from the specific IP group. Okay, so okay, moving on to the next slide. So we have the myth of Manobo, Tuglay, and Tuglibon are one of noticeable of Bagobo's region. And according to Jucano's outline of Philippine mythology, they are classified as assistants to Pamudak Manobo. So, and we're responsible for the birth and marriage, language, as custom of the tribe. So according to Rap or Laura Estrel, Watson Benedict, napaka-similar sa konteksto ng Biblia na kung saan um, ginawa si Adan at si Eva. Ayan. Iwas muna tayo sa term ng Bible. Yan. So in other source, however, these two deities were either the creator of the world or co-creator of humanity and Eve. So Lumabat and Maybuyan, according to Bagobo and Manobo myth, there once lived two deities named Lumabat, or called by the native god of the sky, and Maybuyan, goddess of underworld. Both were siblings but complete opposite of each other. Ayan. So Lumabat was a terrific hunter who once brought along his dog to catch an elusive deer. The hunt took so long that by the time he caught the animal, he was already old and graying, so still he returned to his people, eager to show them his power. Right? So Lumabat even killed his father 8 times. So each, each time, latter that came back to life, he became younger and younger. Okay. So the rite of passage in a young person's life, marriage is the most important rite of passage. So the family of the groom is required to pay the bride's family a dowry, so which may take years to accumulate before the bride price negotiation. So the sides reconstruct their genealogies in order to check whether the onion might be incestuous. So once incest is ruled out, the boy's family sends an intermediary to negotiate the bride price. So this consists of the panamon goods for the girl's parents and kin, plus the panton goods for the girl herself. She makes a great show of refusing the proposal, so often holding out for a bigger panton. So if the boys can afford it, they have to withdraw. So this is information accordingly to the electronic source that get I research rather. So the marriage practice. The wedding celebration opens with the groom's parents presenting a spear to the bride's parents. So an act to propitiate Duhanga Karang, the god of marriage, so that the couple will prosper. The grandparents then hand over a gong set and a palehoma blade to the bride's parents to appease Kayag and Pamua. So God will guarantee the success of the couple's farm work. So to be abundant to abandon their farm and harvest um to be harvest rich. Okay. God's will guarantee the success of the couple's farm work. Following is a tedious assessment of each item of the bride price. So after this is a ceremony in which the bride and groom simultaneously feed each other lumps of rice with chicken. So brother or uncles then perform the rite of knocking the bride's and groom's heads together. So finally, relatives give the couple advice on how to have a happy marriage. So that was so fun and fascinating. I think so. Okay. That practice, trivorial, was once common, but now the deceased relatives leave the body in his or her house, then abandon the house in abaca and coffee growing areas. So Boreal is now in the house yard with the thatch hat raised over it, so which the relatives leave to rot again. So this is examples of the practice okay when they what is I cannot say the term in that. So belief system Manobos, magbabaha is the way of life of the Manobos. So I think their religion believe in God and revolves around it. So based on the based on Ramildido Tumakian or the Doctor of Philosophy and okay. So Bailanon, an human person or practice the medicine or in other words, healer, capable to communicate to magbabaha. So Magbabaha, the supreme being of the Manobos, on which wasn't able to unseen the presence of their god, probably keep watching in Tarlan. Okay, so ayan. This material culture will be presented by Budao Mandi, and that's it. That will be my discussion.
So, my topic is all about the Bagobo material culture. So, first one is first, what is material culture? These are the tools, weapons, utensils, machines, ornaments, arts, buildings, monuments, written records, religious images, clothing, and any other ponderable objects produced or used by humans. So the first one is the Bagobo house structure. The Bagobo Tagabawa. Their houses are made of round timber and are elevated to prevent attacks in times of pangayaw or clan wars. Their rooftops are also unique due to the bundle of cogon grasses. So sa Tagabawa, sa Tagabawa traditional houses are made up of round timber. The thick sturdy door is uniquely built for defense in times of war. Traditional houses can accommodate about 10 people. So the next house is the Bagobo Klata. Unlike any other houses, Bagobo Klata's heritage house is purely made of bamboo materials. Their kitchen serves as the house's main attraction. This serves as a special area for guests, wherein they are served with their special food and refreshments as they step into their humble abode. So as we can see, there here are the millennial preserve the culture. They're millennials with indigenous peoples or IPs roots who have dedicated their time with preserving their tribe's culture. This group of Bagobo Klata or Bingangan millennials were formed last 2017 to let their culture live, live, bring back their authentic tradition and pass it on the next generation. So the next is the Bagobo clothing. The the women's clothing are similar in shape to those of the men, but they are closed in front so that they have to be slipped on over the head. The women wear also a tube skirts of same width throughout like a sack. And the dress of the men consists of a short, tightly fitting jacket, open in front and very short, tight trunks. So dumako naman tayo sa Bagobos Art and Crafts. So meron dito yung inabal. The woven cloth made from abaka and natural dyes is a textile highly valued in Bagobo society. So in a current in our current generation, pwede pa rin natin siyang pwede pa rin nating pwede tayong makabili ng mga woven cloth from Bagobos Art through online shop kasi inabil na siya sa sa online. So the next one is the Bagobo bedded bag. They are renowned for their metalcraft skills, particularly in the productions of brass articles by means of the ancient lost wax process. Weaponry best exemplify Bagobo ornate traditions of metal crafting, while still others of the Bagobo specialize weaving abaca cloth of earth tone hues, as well as basket making trim with beads, fibers, and horse hair. So, yung Bagobo beaded bag dyed abaca fiber in geometrical pattern, as we can see, with glass beads applied to the front and metal bells applied to the borders. Next is the Bagobo weapons and shield. This knife is also referred to as sangi, or sangi, and a good example of the Bagobo tradition of metal craftings. And their sword is called kampilan. It is used by the men to protect their tribe from the invaders. The next one is Bagobo's weapon and shield. The kalasag. These types of oblong shields were used by the Bagobo warriors and were usually adorned with inlaid seashells and engraved with black geometric patterns. So nakikita naman natin na meron siyang buhok sa gilid ng shield. Yan yung mga buhok ng mga napatay nila as serve na madami silang napatay or mas malakas sila sa mga ibang kalalakihan. So dumako naman tayo sa Bagobos ornament. The shell bracelet for Bagobo. For the Bagobo, this bracelet protects them against evil forces and disasters. So the next is the Bagobo necklace. So hindi na siya napakita guys. Kaya yung Bagobo necklace is also high valued for women in Bagobo's tribe. Serve this Bagobo necklace also serve as their beauty and wealth also for women. So that's the end of my discussion, and we will move on Manobo material culture.
So, sa Manobo material culture naman po tayo. So, let's start with the Manobo house. Slide po. This house is made up of bamboo and other hardwood lumber from forests. And Obo Manobos build their traditional homes with bamboo, mahogany, gimelina, ipil-ipil, and kugon. Their houses feature separate rooms for each of Odato's family, which typically grow tree. The center place of the house is fireplace, where the fire cooks food and illuminates the house. Actually, marami pang ibang klase ng Manobo house. Meron din po yung nasa taas po sila ng puno, ganon. So next is the Manobo's clothing. The following are the clothing related terms in the Dulungan Manobo. Language, sinulog clothes women wear on special occasions. Kegal, shirt or blouse. Paleda or lubing or skirt. Selowel, pants. Simpuk, short pants. Baog, loincloth. And lapin kawal or lapin sipuk underwear. So yung nakikita nyo pong picture dyan is ito po yung mga grupo ng mga dulungan Manobo. Isa po silang mga dulungan Manobo. So next slide. Manobo's clothing sample. This one of sample of sinulog garments worn by women during special occasions. So sinusot lang nila tong damit na to tuwing may special occasions lang. And the next one is a long sleeve skirt for women, kegal, is the general term for upper garments for both men and women. Next slide. So, Manobo's ornament. Punta naman, the basak or what we call the necklace of Manobos is made normally of beads and tiny brass bells and sometimes of animal teeth. So nakikita naman natin na karamihan ng mga necklace ng Manobos is made up of beads. Like this one, another sample of basak worn by Manobo women naman. Men rarely wear necklaces. When do they do? Necklaces. When they do, theirs are usually much simpler. Mas simple yung sa lalaki kaysa sa babae. Yung next slide. So next is the Manobo's ornaments. Sogot or bracelet made of nito, a native vine, or sigkil or anklet. And sigkil go well with apple or tato. Next slide. Manobo's head ornament. So in Dulungan Manobo, the general term of a headdress is kimage. Wait, kimage. It is attached to a comb. It is called a sudong. Nakikita naman po natin, ito is part po na to is to yung comb. So nag-attach sila ng mga tela dyan or beads sa comb na yan. Next slide. Ito nga. Ito. Itong kimage, sinusot din to ng mga lalaki. Itong mga nakikita nyong buhok-buhok dyan is yan yung mga buhok ng kambing. Yun. Example to ng sudong is ito yung example ng kimage. Next slide is a pakul or a hair tie. So, That's the end of my discussion. Okay na.
Nasave na kaya yun? Hello.
Jean Natalie Cruz, and I am going to discuss the social organization of Bagobo and the Manobo group. Bagobo, Tagabawa Bagobo. The Bagobo has a well-defined social structure. According to Sonia Manguni's research for the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the Bagobo is divided into three classes: the Magani, the Mabalian, and the slaves. Where the Magani are the warrior and the Mabalian are the healers. Yung Magani or Dato, usually sila yung chieftain na nagsisecure sa safety ng community. Nag sila yung sila yung nagli-lead sa community nila. And the Dato is the legislator, prosecutor, and the judge. There are more roles attributed to different members of the society. The Matanam Tugal, which is supported by the elders who is acting as consultants and advisors. The Taranituan, who leads the rituals of planting, harvesting, and marriage. The Tarabawian and Mabalian, who are the healers. Pero may difference yung dalawang yon. Kasi yung Mabalian, sila yung traditional hilot. Pero yung Tarabawian, sila yung mga healer. Sila yung nagpapagaling ng mga kung anik-anik. So, yun. There is also a Panday Puto who makes all the materials using in planting and harvesting. The Tarab-abal are the weavers. Usually women. Tapos yung sa ano naman, ang Magani sila yung first class. Tapos yung Mabalian is parang sila yung nasa middle class. And then yung slaves naman, yun yung mga alipin, sila yung nasa lowest ng social class ng Bagobo. Next. So, yon Manobo yung social organization nila. There are 8 groups of Manobo, often connected by name with either political divisions or landforms. They are very similar that the only thing they differ are the dialect and other aspects of culture. So, based on my research, the social life of the Manobo is patriarchal. Yung head ng family is the husband. Pero yung mga lalaki, pwede silang mag-asawa ng madami as long as meron silang pang-suporta sa nila. Based on their, kung kaya nilang suportahan yun, okay lang. So yun, yung head ng nila, ethnic group nila is Dadato rin. Sila yung first class din. And there are also Barrio Council. They are elected by Manobo people. They handle law enforcement, matters concerning civil law, community improvement, and questions over over land ownership. Whenever they have social events, community whenever they have social events, especially marriage, they should guarantee it to the datu to make all the arrangements. So yun, kapag may mga marriage or kung ano yung mga special occasions, kailangan muna nilang i-consult sa datu kasi yung datu siya yung mag-handle ng na yon. Kung mag-handle ng ng gathering na yon. And the traditional social structure of Manobo consists of four classes. The Bagani, who protects the society. Yung the Bailan, either a male or female healer. The commoner or the farmers and the slaves. So yun, ang first class nga yung Bagani, sila yung mga datu. And then yung Bailan, sila yung healer, nasa medyo kataasan. And then yung commoner, yung mga farmers, sila yung nasa ano na, middle class. And yung slaves naman, sila yung pinaka low sa social class ng Manobo. So yun, slaves usually belong to the ruler and usually given as part of the bride wealth. The village the village member could also become slave if they aren't able to pay for the penalty of a crime they had committed. So yung mga villagers doon, pwede rin silang maging alipin kung kunwari may ginawa silang masama and then hindi nila ano yung tawag dun? Hindi nila na ano yung tawag dun? Hindi nila kung hindi nila mabayaran or what, pwede silang gawing alipin. So, yun. Wait lang. Slaves could attain freedom through persistency of the fulfillment of their duties, faithfulness to their master, or a payment of their debt through servitude. Inter-village relationship is based on upakat or reciprocity. Village members, usually belonging to kinship group or groups allied by marriage, expect assistance from each other in matters of subsistent labor, defense, and support in crisis. So, yun po yung social organization ng Bagobo and the Manobo group. Thank you po.
So, hello everyone. This is Angelica May Tipaltop, and I'm going to tackle about the historical events of Manobo and Bagobo. So, Bagobo. The Bagobo are still the people the mountains of Mindanao between the crest of the range culminates in the volcanic Mount Apo, the highest peak in the Philippines. In the waters at the western side of the head of the Gulf of Davao, they form a population of some 10 or 12,000, still largely pagan. Since the American occupation of the islands, a considerable number have been induced to settle in the lowlands between their original fastnesses in the coast. The Bagobo do not seem to differ greatly from other Malays in appearance. Meaning yung tangkad, yung pangatawan, ganon. Same siya dun sa appearance ng mga Malays. They are light reddish brown complexion. So yun yung kulay ng balat nila. These characteristics are said to be common to all the tribes about the Gulf of Davao. Though individuals are found, especially towards the interior, who show marked traces of intermarriage with Negritos. The Ata to the north and northeast of the Bagobo have been called Negritos by some observers, and there are said to be pygmies in the Samal island of the Gulf. The Bagobo were the first ethnic group in Mindanao encountered by the Spaniards at the end of the 19th century. Its name was derived from the words bago meaning new and ubo or uvo meaning growth or grow, which referred to a recent formation of people along the Davao Gulf Coast. So, yung mga Bagobo daw, sila daw yung pinakaunang ethnic group ng Mindanao na na-encounter ng Spaniards noong 19th century. So, tapos yung meaning ng name na Bagobo is parang pag pinagsama, new growth. Ganun. So, next. Manobo. According to an oral tradition, the Manobos were led by two brothers, Momalo and Naway. They lived Banobo Creek, which flowed into the Mindanao River near the present site of Cotabato City. In the 14th century, Sheriff Kabungsuan, a Muslim missionary, arrived from Johor to convert the people of Mindanao. Tabunao did not want to convert to Islam but told his younger brother not to reject the Muslim faith. So, nung 14th century, may Muslim missionary na nagngangalang Sheriff Kabungsuan na galing sa Johor. Tapos gusto niyang yung i-convert yung mga people, yung mga tao sa Mindanao na maging Muslim kan. Pero yung leader ng Manobo na si Tabunao ay ayaw niya magpa-convert ng Muslim niya doon sa kapatid niya na wag daw nilang i-reject yung Muslim faith. Tabunao and his followers moved up the Pulangi River to the interior of Cotabato. They decided to part ways, and in the years to come establish their own tribes. These groups retained their indigenous beliefs, practices, and named their original site Manobo, which eventually became Manobo. The descendants of Mamalu became the Maguindanao. Next. The Manobo are several people groups who inhabit in the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. They speak only one of the languages belonging to the Manobo language family. Their origins can be traced back to the early Malay peoples who came from the surrounding islands of Southeast Asia. Today, their common language and Malay heritage help to keep them connected. So sa Manobo may 8 groups sila. First is the Cotabato Manobo, Nagusan Manobo, Dibabawon Manobo, Matigsalug Manobo, Sarangani Manobo, and Manobo of Western Bukidnon and Obo Manobo. The Manobo tribe is one of the 110 groups of indigenous peoples in the Philippines. The Manobo people are mostly concentrated in the southwestern part of the province of Bukidnon, Mindanao Island, Philippines. Their territory is marked by the Kitanglad and Kalatungan mountain ranges. The local knowledge of the Manobo people was derived from oral history and traditions. These traditions include religious rituals, dances, songs, and music, epic traditions, folk tales, games, handicrafts, and customary meditation. Yun lang.
Hello po, my name is Regina Joy Latrero and today I'm going to tackle about the issues confronting the IP group of Manobo and the Bagobo. Next po. Unavailability of basic needs. Manobo IP group source of drinking water is poor. Fetching from this source is also scheduled. For their household consumption, they also make the use of rainwater. Moreover, electricity is not available on their community. We all know that the unavailability of basic needs is a major problem of our country, especially to less fortunate people. Just like what I've read po, Sabi niya, Manobo IP group also experiencing this kind of situation wherein it causes myriad challenges not only to adults but to younger ones as well because they are the most affected when we are talking about poverty. Next po. Child labor. The tribal community of these working children is classified as the Southern Manobo, one of the 11 indigenous groups that inhabit the Bukidnon uplands. The children are involved in four workplaces such as sugar plantation, corn farm, wet rice farm, and the households. Um, we commonly hear the child labor in all over the country. Instead of going to school, playing with their friends and enjoying their childhood, ito pong mga bata within the Manobo IP group are entering various jobs na hindi naman nila dapat ginagawa. Wala silang choice kundi magtrabaho because of some reasons. They are penniless and their parents maybe see this child labor as a way for them to satisfy their hunger. Next po. Malnutrition and diseases among children. Majority of the children who move around do not have sleepers and are not properly clothed. Most children appear malnourished. The most common illnesses and causes of deaths among children are diarrhea, measles, and malnutrition. So, just like what I've said earlier, children who belongs to Manobo IP group suffers the most because of their destitute life. Tas sinabi rin po dyan na the most common illnesses and causes of death among children are diarrhea, measles, and malnutrition. Doon pa lang sa information na yon, we could say how hard their life is. Wala silang pambili ng medicines or pangbayad sa ospital. Kaya yung mga bata, instead of surviving from such illnesses, they are losing their lives, which is really painful for their parents because they wasn't able to serve their children's life. Next po. Next po. Access to education. Almost one-third or 32.1% of the Manobas residing in the study community of child labor among indigenous peoples, the case of a Manobo tribe in Bukidnon province, Belita Palma Silsa and Isaias S. Silsa have never been to school. About 15% of the population have some high school education. Only 3% have reached college. One person was able to complete a college education. The level of education of almost one half of the population is the elementary level. Manobos live in the mountains in the province of Bukidnon, which only means na malayo sila sa kabihasnan. Kaya hindi sila nakakapasok sa eskwelahan. Sabi dyan, one person was able to complete a college education. Ang ano niya lang po, ang unfair niya lang kasi they also have the right to enter in any school. They also have the right to be enlightened, to learn a tons of knowledge. Pero hindi sila nakakapag-aral kaya instead of having better life sana, they remain on the poverty line which leads into a lot of problems on their lives. Next po. The confronting issues of the IP group, which is Bagobo. The struggle for survival. The struggle in claiming their ancestral domain has long been their concern. Most of the IPs, like Bagobo, are upland dwellers and depend on the traditional kaingin, are swidden agriculture as a means of their basic necessities. Okay. Yung lack of tenural security of their traditional lands po, it bears even more pressures to the marginalized tribal communities in which kagaya nga po ng binasa ko, they depend on agriculture as a means of their livelihood. They have still struggling in claiming their ancestral lands kasi siguro po may mga umaangkin sa kung saan sila nakatira kahit pa minana na nila yung lupa na yun sa mga ancestors nila. Next po. Men and women engage in subsistence farming. Farming is one of the livelihoods of Bagobo people in which children are trained at a very young age to help out in farm work. Every family heavily relies on abaca, the main and most important commodity grown in the area as their major source of income. So Bagobos are into farming din po. Kagaya nung sa Manobo IP group kanina, papasok din dito yung child labor kasi nabanggit dyan the children are trained at a very young age para tumulong sa mga magulong nila. They have no choice but to work as farm laborers. Take note at a very young age. We all know na hindi ito kagustuhan ng kahit na sino man, especially their parents, pero wala silang magawa kasi mahirap maging mahirap. They have to sacrifice and endure the pain seeing their child or children working in the farm. Next po. The fight against nature's imbalance. For the Bagobo, losing a part of one's arable property coupled with the uncertainty of regularly producing their own food from a smaller piece of land is a fight they have acknowledged. So community members who have already lost their lands were also losing their once environmentally stable life. Kasi dito na lang sila kumukuha ng kabuhayan eh. It is their main source of income, kaya what will happen if they lose their own land? Where will they find money to buy something to eat? Kaya mahirap po yung situation ng mga Bagobos people in terms of their lands. Next po. The fight for ancestral domain. A fight that involves families trying to uphold their ancestral rights over the land they sustainability till. So kung mapapansin po natin, yung mga issues confronting Bagobo people are always connected to their lands. On the other hand, a large-scale banana plantation added another threat to Bagobo lands. Kasi it causes myriad difficulties for Bagobo people because it is their land and they have the right to plant whatever they want within their land. But their ancestral rights was being stepped on by some reasons. Next po. Climate change as a threat to their livelihood. It has become a major threat to the livelihood of many Bagobo farmers. Despite having little or no responsibility for current and future climate changes, the IPs are the ones likely to suffer the most from the consequences. In addition po, because they inhabit the most fragile ecosystems and depend on its natural resources, they have the first they are the first to suffer from the brunt impacts of climate change. Then yung rainy season din po, it became so unpredictable that farmers do not know the right time to plant their crops anymore. They have also observed that it is now hotter than it is used to be before. With these reasons, we can come up in a conclusion that climate change is one of the most major problems of Bagobo people in terms of their source of livelihood. Next po. Next. Facing scarcity. According to the article of Ace General Esperes, that women of Bagobo Klata are trying to their best to revive their weaving culture and pass it on the next generation. It implies that weaving culture is still promote their products. Furthermore, even before pandemic, they'd experience unpredictable and underappreciated of the products of Bagobo Klata. Um, um, in conclusion po, dun sa mga nabanggit natin na issues confronting the Bagobo and Manobo, masasabi natin na their life is really miserable as for the Manobos as well as to the Bagobo IP group. Parang without land, they have no source of livelihood to provide for their families. And based on the issues itself na rin, we can see that children are the most affected because of their less fortunate life. Yun lang po. Thank you po sa pakikinig.